This short film describes how the ESPA-funded project, Participatory Modelling of Wellbeing Trade-Offs in Coastal Kenya, combined knowledge from different sources to explore the trade-offs between different people who benefit from ecosystem services. We studied the provisioning service of fish from the coral reef and seagrass ecosystems that provides a livelihood to different groups of local people. The stakeholders we focused on in this project included the fishermen who use beach seine, a large small mesh gear which is illegal. We also had fishermen who used other kinds of fishing gears, such as spear gun, gill net and traps. And we were interested in the people who buy and sell the fish. These included male traders who focus mostly on more expensive fish and female fishmongers who buy smaller, cheaper fish. These women are called mama karanga locally. To explore how these stakeholders' well-being is affected by ecosystem services, we had to start by understanding the dynamics of the ecosystem. So EcoPath with EcoSim is a computer model which represents the food web within the marine ecosystem and the effects of fishing.
When we use ecological modeling tools, we try to look at how these species are caught by the various gears in various amounts and enter this in EcoPath together with ecological study parameters like biomass and let the model estimate other parameters. And among objectives, you find that maximizing for one causes a change in the others that may not be appealing to the stakeholders. So you find that like when you maximize for ecology, you have to reduce something like employment, or you have to reduce certain kinds of gears, or you have to compromise on some economic margin. There is no win-win situation.
The P-Mowtick project looks specifically at wellbeing trade-offs. It gives you a much richer understanding of what is actually being traded in these decisions. Not just in terms of jobs lost or gained, for example, but about how different decisions in the coastal zone have affected things like social relationships between different groups of people, how they feel about their own lives, things that they feel angry about. A lot of the discussions we had about well-being were about lack of power that people have in decision making. And so the questions that the wellbeing approach then present us with was, well, what does that mean in terms of social well-being? So what does that mean in terms of how people get on with each other?
It's important to get different people's perspectives on what the trade-offs are, because these ideas will be socially constructed. Different people will have a different perspective. And also, if we want to inform any type of decision-making process, then we want that process to be informed by people's priorities, people's views, but also potentially to be supported by people. Workshop 2 was a really exciting opportunity to sort of open up this consideration of the range of ecosystem services and the range of different stakeholders and how they were linked. And so to draw this complex systems diagram and to get people to actually talk about the interactions and the interlinkages. And of course then you could use that co-created system to open up a discussion about how lives, livelihoods, ecosystems were changing. And then to start constructing these scenarios based on the drivers.
We came up with scenarios to engage the stakeholders to think about the future. These scenarios were qualitative stories which incorporated the different drivers of change which the stakeholders had told us about. The scenarios represented different futures according to different changes in population, in the governance regime, in the state of the Kenyan economy, and in the development of the fishery. In contrast to the scenarios, which were qualitative and descriptive, we made a reductionist toy model. And this was a simulation model of the whole social ecological system. It had a simple representation of the ecology, it had the drivers in terms of economy and governance and population, and it had the well-being benefits to the different stakeholders, as well as the different management objectives in the fishery. And it allowed stakeholders in our participatory workshops to look at the dynamics of the overall system and think about the trade-offs which emerged from it.
Model came out as a thinking tool. You cannot use them to make decisions, but it made them start thinking deeply into one problem and thinking more about it. People identify the trade-offs, and therefore realizing that for me to benefit, so and so also has to benefit. They started thinking we have to do it together.
To help the stakeholders think about the hard choices which are presented by trade-offs, we asked them to vote on which values should be prioritised when making decisions about the fishery.
We had the total catch per fisher and the earnings per fisher, the total employment provided by the fishery, equity between people and fairness, and we had the quality of the environment.
If you are dealing with these stakeholders without thinking the trade-offs, basically you are going to land into conflict, because the trade-off was important to show you how far or how fast or how wide you can pursue your well-being into a system.
You could see a group of people who have sometimes the same interests, sometimes differing interests, trying to grapple with the complicated ecosystem dynamics, trying to understand, each trying to look out for their own livelihoods and to clothe and school their own children, and in all this complexity try to agree and negotiate and decide a collective way forward.
This project has shown how modelling and participatory tools can help stakeholders to explore trade-offs in different people's well-being and deliberate over them.